Hey, everybody. So, do you ever just come across things that you see and you just take it for whatever it is that you see it for, or you think you see it for, or maybe it was said because somebody somewhere was wiser than you, and maybe when you do actually think about it and you realize you don't know what you don't know, so you kind of have to get to know stuff so that you know more. And it just reminds you that you can't just trust where everyone's information is coming from. So, what triggered this in me this morning? A cup of tea, my friends. A cup of tea. You know, the kind that come with the little thingies, stringies on it with a little something that it says. And mine happened to say, let's see if you can see that. Can y'all see what that says? It's kind of telling you love is the highest of all virtues. Now, I don't know why that just stuck with me. And it stuck with me wrong. And then I started to question, well, what do I know what a virtue is? And I started looking up stuff. And I got even more confused because they're talking about gratitude and fidelity and chastity and, I don't know, goodness. And I think even Pope Gregory the First from way back freaking dead years ago, he named it all kinds of things too, but put them in order. And I'm like, okay, so now I'm even more confused about what I don't know about what I don't know about this virtue of love thing. But what I do know is that it's just not resonating. It's not resounding well for me today. So, in my quest for understanding love and how it's rings across every emotion, it rings out in every gesture or deposition of something. When it's hurt, it rings out in anger, shame, blame, guilt. And is it really underlying on everything? Well, I don't know, because I'm not going to get my answers from Google. I'm going to get my answers from going within and redefining it on terms that work for me. And that's really where we're moving. We're taking all those books, even the ancient knowledge, things like that, and we're taking less face value with them. And we're recreating what makes sense in our now, which is why I always say I'm making my own words up and I create my own dictionary. And quite frankly, I should write my own dictionary because I always forget what words are made up and I make up some more. So anywho, it then started me thinking about an interview I just did this morning with Shay Sparks, who is a coach. And she coaches about neurolinguistics, how to change your patterns and your behaviors through rethinking your words. Some of the stuff I've studied in my hypnosis ventures to be a better coach myself. She's a different kind of coach. And then she also is a podcaster and a coach of power investing in people. That's what it was. So anyway, after I got off talking with her, I really started thinking about what makes people tick and how do you really know what they are. And the question recently came up about introvert, extrovert. And, you know, there's different levels of introvert, extrovert, just like there's different levels of the brain waves. There's different levels of beta. There's different levels of your car going slow okay? Even your hand mixer has low, but then it has a couple speeds within low. So there's levels within all of that. So I started saying, all right, self, what really categorizes it? How do you really know? And why do people take all these different tests that try to determine what you are, when in fact, how you were raised and your DNA lineage that's been handed down to you has a massive contributing factor on your behavior and your perceptions and your reactions and your responses. Because you have to understand everything in the mental mind is on a 24-hour surveillance camera. It sees, senses, and feels everything, even if you're not conscious, or even if it's something that doesn't have a current emphasis at the moment. You store everything in there. And then up front in the conscious, only 5% wobbles around in there and gets recalled. Everything else is responsible for your real behavior and some of your core beliefs that you may not even know actually had a core or had legs or had roots. It was just handed down. And you can hear conversations behind you or in other parts of the room. It could be loving. It could be a fight. Your brain is recording all of those words. And then eventually it's going to get acted out upon. Sometimes being triggered through trauma, and sometimes just through daily something, and you're like, ooh, where did that come from? That's really weird, And sometimes you recognize it as behavior that's not becoming of who your core authentic self is. So it brought me to the story of love today. And I was raised with 5 siblings. 5 siblings are in 5 years. My mother is one of 16 children. That's right, you heard me. 16 children. My grandmother was birthing every year, 2.5 years. That's right. A living, breathing, beautiful being that are my aunts and uncles. They lived on a big farm, secluded, no car. I think they had a horse. They had pigs, milking cows, chickens. And what did you do every day? You cared for the livestock and the herb garden and the bees. And then you had to care for all these beings. And there was no washing machines. I don't even think there was indoor plumbing at the time. That's right. No disposable Pampers going on in that house. So everything had to be hand washed. And you took a bath in the middle of the kitchen in a big tub, maybe twice a week, if you were lucky. If you got enough hot water in there. And you rotated people in that water as the other one jumped out. So there wasn't a lot of love that I would look at it in my barometer of love. My grandmother actually came from a family of 6. And her grandmother died. And back in those days, you sent the oldest of the nearest family to the farm to help the other person. So in my grandmother's house, it was her older sister, who was 6.5. My grandmother was 5.5. The 6.5-year-old needed to leave her little city dwellings to go to this big ass farm in a dark part of town. I don't know if it was dark, but it would seem like it was because it was so secluded on 200 acres on top of a mountain. I mean, that's like Foreignville, right? And she begged her mother not to send her. She said, I will die, Mom. I will die. Please don't send me. I will die. And she went and she fed the horses, if they had any. But she milked the cows. She picked the chicken, eggs. She did all those things. And she died of dysentery within a year of living there. Now, my grandmother had to bury a grandchild. Her mother had to bury her oldest daughter. because family tradition was you sent the oldest of the other family. But it didn't stop there. My grandmother was next. But she went, and she knew her sister died there. And something stuck inside of her that was an inner strength that she was going to do it. And she did it every day until she was old enough to marry and inherit the farm. And she didn't want it. She longed to be with her sisters and her parents in the city, but she couldn't. She was constantly being rejected every time they came to visit in their pretty little dresses. She's in a pixie cut, dirty, stinky like the barn, in overalls. She would beg to go home, and she couldn't. She had to stay and continue to grow and help her grandmother have a successful farm. And so then she married my grandfather, gave birth to 16 children. You think there was a lot of nurturing going on in there? No. There was a lot of teaching you how to do your chores. And then when you got to be 18, almost all of them went off to go to college. Get me the hell out of here. My mother was one of them. She was number 6 of the 16. So then she marries my father. And my father had a very loving mother, because my grandmother on my father's side, her mother died when she was 12. And she had 5 siblings younger than her. And when her mother died, she had to quit 8th grade and take care of all of those siblings. So she became a mother when she was 12. Very nurturing, very loving, very protective. So she taught my father that. So then my father started to teach my mother a little of that. But there's 5 kids in 5 years. That's a lot. And there was no Pampers back then. And it was being taught how to do our chores. And that's how we were graded in life. How well we did in school. That's how we were graded. That's how we were appreciated. How well did you do? My mother instilled doing the job well, so you didn't have to redo it. And to take pride in your things that you owned. Even if it was a few dresses, take pride in them. Take pride in yourself and how you looked and how you spoke. And respect was a big thing. And sitting around reading the Bible was another. So she felt in her way that's how she was to love. We each had a bath every night. We each got to wash our hair every couple nights. Each of us got to go shopping with her and make clothes together. Each of us got healthy meals and teeth cleaned every 6 months. That was my mother's way of showing love. So then there came along to be me. And us siblings were really, really close in age and close together. We loved each other and we protected each other. And we were only allowed to tease each other. If anyone else stepped in to tease, well, wasn't going to be pretty. Just kidding. We were taught never to hit or fight, by the way. We weren't allowed to do that. Even amongst ourselves, we would get in trouble and so if we got in a fist fight and kicked each other's butts or got our butt kicked, we better get the crying done before Mom came home. Yep, that's the way it was. So we learned to squelch and to hide a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings, thinking it was all very normal. When we look back now, we laugh, think we should write books about it. And anywho, fast forward to today and this virtue of love and what love really means, who honestly knows? But it's how deeply you feel. And when you feel, you're invoking emotions. Is it the person that cries the hardest over the silliest because they love so deeply? Is it the longing of not being abandoned, that you just want to be loved and hang out with other people? I mean, what is it to you? What is the virtue of love to you? And is it the highest virtue? We're moving into an era right now of less is more, less is more, less is more. And If anything, the lockdown taught us is the simplicity and the currency of time. Time with other people, quality time, listening, feeling, learning, trying to understand with compassion, to really step into maybe what other people are experiencing, and then also to find appreciation for just our own family dynamics. I didn't realize I didn't see my kids that often, and I missed them. And I wanted to see them. So if Zoom wasn't an option, I couldn't see them. So I had a longing of loving and wanting to express that love. So when I talk about less is more, I'm talking about a lot of the external interferences. So we're moving on these levels of upgrading and downloading information, and then releasing some of this outsourced crapola that we've gathered that we think has value to us. And let's face it, folks, most of the time we live at the top of the drawer or the top of the closet. What we see first, and we interchange those few outfits on a regular basis. Unless we realize we're going to go see somebody and we're like, I wore that blouse before, I need to change it, kind of thing, right? So we're moving into a space and a place where a lot of opulence and what we had value in before doesn't matter, because we're going to boil down to the quality of our health, the quality of our breath, the quality of our foods. I've gotten to the point now where it's like I'm getting pickier, but not anal retentive, if that makes sense. I'm starting to think, what's exactly in that? Who made that food? Who might have given that animal this or that? I don't want that. I've actually found a local farm where I can get some things that may cost me a little bit more, but I'm supporting my local farm, and I know they didn't have certain injections or certain grains or certain soy, because I don't want that translated into my DNA, which goes back to that ancestry. You are all of your ancestors, all here. You are all of your subconscious, including theirs. It's all in here. I know all of this because it came up for me in the 90s when I started really going into regression work for myself, wanting to know me, what made me tick. I wanted to be the best for me. And how could I do that? And what modalities had the biggest effect on me that weren't as costly as maybe some of the other things? And then how do I learn it and share it with people so they can get in here and realize they don't need all this stuff, because it just clouds and clouds and clouds the authentic, loving heart center that you are, that you're not going to find in Google. And then you won't pick up stuff like this and go, huh? And then you start self-diving on what makes sense to you. Now, I could go on and on and on, but I'm at 19 minutes. If I get to 20, sometimes I can't upload my YouTube properly, and I don't know how to edit yet. I will get there. But in the meantime, let me know how you're doing. Are you learning to sort of cut and trim off all the excess and hone in these boundaries, things that work for you, work on this fulcrum so that you can balance things with true things that you want on all those scales? Are you controlling the brake and the gas in the commander seat? Let me know how you're doing. So much love. Please like, subscribe, and share. And if you need assistance, you all know I'm at embodimentofthesoul.com.